وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنهم الله من فضله والله واسع عليم. Marry off the spouseless among you, as well as the righteous of your bondmen and bondwomen. If they are poor, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will enrich them out of His bounty. For Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is all bountiful, all knowing. In Surah Nur, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has mostly mentioned injunctions pertaining to the protection of chastity and prevention of obscenity and shamelessness, etc. And of course, in regard to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also highlighted severe punishments against adultery, and related matters are mentioned. And thereafter, the laws of hijab and isti'dhan, seeking permission before entering the dwelling of others, has been mentioned. In this particular verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, with the moderation that Islam has with it, has mentioned a solution out of respect of human desire and nature to fulfill the rights of mankind correctly, and that mankind can fulfill their desires correctly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed the system of nikah and marriage. Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal in this verse of the Quran is saying, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ, arrange the marriage of the spouseless amongst you. Get those that are unmarried amongst you married. The word ayama is the plural of the word aymun, which refers to any men or any women who are unmarried, regardless of whether they were not married at all or whether they are widows or widowers or divorcees, etc. So the guardians of such men and women are being commanded in this verse that they should get them married. So, the scholars and jurists are unanimous on the point that according to the manner of the address of this verse, the preferable and masnoon way of marriage is that men and women should have it arranged through their guardians rather than arranging it directly, which is unfortunately not the case nowadays. However, marriage and nikah is the command for the ummah, for the Muslims to get into rather than getting into sin. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had also in various ahadith commanded the youth amongst the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum to get married. He stated, يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج. O young men, whoever among you can afford to get married, let him get married. فإنه أغض للبصر وأحصن للفرج ومن لم يستطع فعليه بالصوم فإنه له وجاء. Marriage is more protective and effective in lowering the gaze and the private part. And whoever cannot do that, then let him fast, for fasting is a protection for him. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, تزوجوا توالدوا تناسلوا فإني مباهن بكم الأمم يوم القيامة. Get married, get children, and continue the lineage, for I will be proud of you on the day of Qiyamah before all the other before all the other nations. So the word ayama, the plural of ayyim, again, which describes the nature of a man or a woman that is unmarried. So إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And in this verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then refers to the slave girls and the slave boys. Amongst them, those that may have wealth, they may not have wealth. So if they do not have wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide them with wealth. Get those slave girls and slave boys that you may have also married and get them into nikah. Of course, nowadays there is no custom or there is no existence of slave girls, slave women, slave men, slave boys, etc. So they are also addressed in this verse of the Quran. إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. If these spouseless people are poor, Allah will enrich them out of His bounty. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu reported from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encouraged the guardians to get married and commanded both free men and servants to get married. And He has also promised to enrich them and grant them sustenance and rosy. If they are poor, if they do not have enough wealth, Allah will grant them the wealth. It was recorded that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, seek the richness through marriage. Seek the richness through marriage. Meaning, if you want barakah in your sustenance, if you want to be rich, if you want to be wealthy, if you want some sort of sustenance coming your way, then get married. Meaning, marriage is a means for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to find a reason to give you more wealth and more sustenance so that you can take care of yourself, your spouse, and the children that come through. In fact, in another hadith, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ثَلَاثَةٌ حَقٌّ عَلَى اللَّهِ عَوْنُهُم. There are three groups of people. It is the duty and responsibility of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to assist them. النَّاكِحُ يُرِيدُ الْعَفَافِ. The first on the list is the one who gets married seeking chastity. وَالْمُكَاتَبْ يُرِيدُ الْأَدَاءِ. A slave who makes a contract with his master with the aim of buying his freedom, Allah will fulfill and make means for him to pay off to buy his freedom. وَالْغَازِي فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And one who fights for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then ends off this conversation, ends off this ayah of the Quran by saying that Wallahu wasi'un alim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all bountiful. His bounties have no bounds. Alim, He is most knowing. He is of the intentions of those that want to marry, of the intentions that don't want to marry. Of course, thereafter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also speaks about the injunction of وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفِ الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا حَتَّى يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. If one cannot find any sort of financial stability, he is unable to get married, وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفْ, then he should rather stay chaste in any way whatsoever. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us understand the seriousness of this matter. Grant the ummah the ability to understand the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put, the moderation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in these bonds of marriage and nikah, rather than making it difficult for us and for our children as far as nikah is concerned.